Ready?
Do it.
All right. Hello, microphones are working.
Woo.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing good this morning. We're going to run through a whole bunch of things in a little bit, but first I'll tell you that I'm Heather. This is Nicole. We run the support department at Mediavine together. So if you've sent an email, it was one of us or some fabulous person on our team that answered your question, helped you optimize your site, gave you lots of help and encouragement and hopefully some good answers. We're going to give you a bunch of those pieces to the puzzle and try to put them all together. You're here because you want to make more money. How many people in here are with Mediavine? Yes, most? Okay, so what I wanted to say is that all of the info that we're giving you is going to be relevant whether you're with Mediavine or not. They're all tools that you can use to earn more. Your tools might look a little bit different, but you're going to want to take the information away from here and put it to good use.
Yes. All right. So we are going to send you guys the slides if you'd like after the session, maybe tomorrow, we will see. But if you want a copy of those, there will be a user copy, so with all of this information in it, and I can text that to you if you sign up for our list. We're also going to possibly send you some encouraging notes along the way in the next couple of weeks to spur you along a little bit in the optimization and the make more money game. So it's just a text list, and it'll let us send you.
For the slides.
If you text 43506, if you text audits to 43506, you'll be on this text list, and we'll send you the slides.
It'll come straight to your phone. You won't have to chase it down in your email later. It'll be like condensed with bullet points, so in case you missed a note or you didn't scribble something down, it'll be there for you later. Yeah.
That's all right. All right. So today we are going to cover a bunch of different things. We're going to go through kind of fast, so we have some time for questions at the end. So make sure you are writing those down if you have any questions for us. We're going to cover how and why to do a self-audit and make impactful decisions for your site and your bottom line. We're going to cover how to use your dashboard to focus your efforts, because there's a lot of information in the dashboard, and sometimes you open it up and you are like, what is happening here?
What am I looking at?
We're going to tell you what to look at, why, and how to make decisions based on that data to improve your revenue. We are also going to talk some about why you should be intentional about your design, your layout, and your formatting decisions, because that makes a difference, and it can make a big difference in some cases, so it's a very important thing to consider. We're also going to cover some about your settings and which of your settings available in your dashboard might be limiting your income a bit. And we're going to talk about video and how to use video to maximize your revenue as well.
I'm also going to add that if you think that you know these things and you think that they sound basic or you've already heard them from someone before in an email, you're wrong. We're definitely going to tell you things that you don't know and how to apply them. Before this session, while we were mapping things out, we sent out a survey. We had a bunch of people send in, details about their site because they were really just requesting for them to be picked apart. And when we started looking at everything, people were making a lot of the same, and they're sites with a great RPM, and there's sites that are all teal, and they're basically following most of the recommendations. But on every single one of them, there were a lot of common denominators, things that, needed an extra set of eyes, things that needed a little bump. There's always ways for you to max out your earnings. That's what we want to help you do.
Yes, speaking of earnings.
Okay, so what is RPM? RPM is math. It is not magic. There's no magical dial that somebody can turn to give you a higher RPM. And I think because of the way that we talk about it with our friends, we talk about it in groups, it can be kind of confusing, and a lot of people just have like a really big misunderstanding about what RPM actually is. It's literally just your earnings divided by your traffic times 1,000. And you can use RPM to measure all kinds of things. You can measure it to know if you're charging a brand an appropriate rate. You can use it to measure your affiliate earnings year over year, to know if like a widget that you added is performing the way that you want to. Most of us use it to understand our, ad earnings relative to our traffic. But if I sit next to my friend and I have a $24 RPM and she has a $22 RPM, that doesn't necessarily mean that I am making more money than her. It means that how the math shakes out, I'm making more per 1,000. And then we need to look at the information and figure out why. Yeah, I mean, your RPM reporting is in your dashboard, but really you want to. Yep, it's a daily calculation. So we're pulling data from Google Analytics, and we're pulling data from the ad server, and then the dashboard is just doing the math for you. That's basically how it works. But when there are fluctuations, there are all kinds of things that can go into it. Some factors you can control. Some factors you cannot, related to your RPM. So like a good example of something that you can control would be like site speed. If you notice that we'll talk about viewability more in a minute, but if you notice that you have lower viewability on some of your ad units, you're probably not making as much from them as you should, or could. So then you want to look at why. Site speed is often one of those answers. Some things you can't change, like seasonal trends in the industry, like you can't change the fact that advertisers have different budgets in January than they do in June, right? That's like not a thing that you can manipulate. You can just make sure that you're maxing out the frame of time that you're in. You can't really super control your countries of origin. If you have a lot of traffic, like it's a thing you might be able to change over time, but you can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, I have a travel site with a bunch of amazing posts about hiking in the Philippines, and I don't want Philippines readers anymore. Like, that's not going to work for you. So you have to come at things from a different perspective. You have to take a different approach.
Yes.
Higher CPMs is important. What is a CPM? CPM is just how much money per 1,000 impressions you're making off of each of those ad units that you're serving on your site. So where you're looking at your RPM, which is kind of how you're measuring all of the things. Your CPM is, you can see the breakdown here. So you can see where you're performing. You can see which ones are making you most. Obviously, video is up there. We'll definitely talk about that. But CPM is important because some of those little changes, you might not see it in your overall RPM numbers. You might make some tweaks and some improvements and some optimizations, and you might see it reflected in the CPMs per ad unit before you see it reflected in your overall RPM. So it's really just about understanding the numbers and understanding the math, and how to use them to make more.
So this is a little view of the RPM.
She has a microphone in case people have questions.
Where you can see it by the daily. So over here, if you hover over a specific day, you can see what your RPM was that specific day. This is a summary of the last 30 days. So that's an important thing to note because they're very different numbers and they can change every day.
When you log in and you're looking, you might be getting the highs of, the highs at the end of the month, averaged with the lows at the beginning of the month. So it's important to know the date range in your Mediavine dashboard is affecting the numbers that you're looking at. It's giving an average. So I might have been, 28 yesterday, but I look at my average and it's 24 because the beginning of the month was lower than the end, right? So
that's also an important piece if you make changes to your site, so you can monitor if they're having any kind of drastic impacts. If you add a plugin to your site today and tomorrow your RPM is way down, that might be an indicator that something is wrong. So it's a good way to get an early detection if something's weird is going on with your site or your ads or any of your plugins. So how to do a revenue audit. If you would like to do this along with us, you are free to do so. Again, you guys are going to get these slides and there will be even more detail on your version of the slides than there are here.
But we wanted to walk through all the things with you.
Yes.
And if you get halfway through here and you're like, I don't know what to change, support specialists and support engineers are all available for most of the day today.
Yeah, starting at
to work with you
10:15,
one-on-one.
there's going to be our support staff upstairs that would be more than happy to sit down next to you and look at your dashboard and make recommendations on that. We have support engineers here that can help fix more technical issues or look at items like that. So make sure you talk to some of them. Can our support staff that are in the room, can you guys wave? Hello. Yes. Find them or find us, and we will be happy to help you as well. So if you're going through with us, you want to open up your Mediavine Dashboard. You want to open up your top 3 to 5 posts. There's a widget on the bottom left corner of your dashboard that will display the top 10 posts from the last 30 days. You want to open up those same top 3 to 5 posts on your phone, because mobile first is the way to go. That's where the majority of your readers are likely to be, and that's where you really want to look and make sure things are well optimized.
For anybody that submitted to have their site reviewed for this, I went through and I pulled an average just to see like the sort of like median for mobile traffic. Everybody was, except for 2 people, were 70% and above. Most were higher than 72% mobile traffic. So we are all looking at our sites on our desktops all day, and it's super hard to shift focus. Your readers literally almost never see that. So it's really important to put your eyeballs on your phone and understand how your readers are experiencing all of your content, because it's probably where all your money is.
Yes. So some things you want to take note of while you're looking through those posts is, have all of those top 10 posts been optimized? Are they making the most they possibly can? If you have an old post that suddenly is coming up in the rankings and you haven't looked at that in 4 years, you should probably look at it and make sure on mobile and desktop it's formatted well, you're getting appropriate numbers of ads, it's using the current best practices for SEO. You want to make sure there's no unnecessary items in there.
I also want to say sometimes it's really helpful to find a friend. Because even though I can stand up here and tell every single one of you what you should be doing with your site and what to change and how to change it, sometimes it's really hard to be objective about your own content. It's a thing that I have a hard time doing. So it can be really, really helpful to just kind of pair off and partner with somebody that you are fine with them being critical of you, and you are fine being critical of them, because sometimes you just need to hear some like hard truths, like, please get rid of this paragraph. Please break up this test.
Yes.
This photo is not working. You know, just find somebody that you can work with and, you know, honestly evaluate, because sometimes it's really, really hard to do that with your own content, or to understand how your readers are actually using your content.
For sure. If your homepage is in the top 10, you want to look at that and make sure that it has appropriate numbers of ads on it. Most people do not have a homepage in their top 10, and there aren't typically a lot of ads on that. So if your site has different traffic patterns, you want to make sure your ads are set up for your specific site to make sure it's working for you. Have you changed themes or hosts or any major design elements lately? Our ads use HTML from the elements on your site to tell them where to go. So if you change recipe cards and don't let us know, you might be missing out on some revenue because your recipe cards might not have an ad in there. If you change your theme, the in-content ads might not know where to go, and that is a big piece of the overall puzzle. So we have a lot of tools on our end that can detect some of those things, so we really proactively reach out and make sure that you guys are running correctly, but it's definitely going to be something you want to keep an eye on as well.
When in doubt, just send an email.
No one knows your site better than you do. So if you're having work done, make sure the people that are working on your site know your ads are important. Please don't turn off my ads and not tell me. And then let me be scared, surprised the next day that I didn't make any income. Like, that happens a lot. It's a thing. So make sure you're looking at your site, make sure anyone working on your site knows they need to check that stuff, or email us, and we're happy to check it for you also. So your site health, this is a big one. I'm sure you guys have all heard us talk many times about site health and how important it is and how much we want to go for teal, because the sites that make the most money tend to have all teal stars. So you want to keep an eye on that. It looks at the last 3 days of data. If that starts to fall, you want to figure out why. There's a lot of different reasons that your site health can go down, but it is a good indication of issues that might arise. It's a good indication of places you might be leaving some money on the table. So if you're looking to increase your revenue, that is the first place that we always recommend people start.
I would like to also add that if your site health slips a little bit, it's not because something is broken. If you made a bunch of changes, something might be broken, okay? But if you just wake up tomorrow and everything is the same, and you just notice like your site health is slipping a little bit, it's probably because you have something new trending. It's not because you need to like hire a technical support engineer for your own self to fix all of your life, right? So it's probably just a matter of looking at where your traffic is coming from. That's almost 100% of the time the thing that changed. So keep an eye on where your traffic is coming from. It changes with the season, with the day, with the week, with what you're promoting. It was one of the things that we talked about this morning was that like none of these things are ever going to be one and done. Like we can't sit in this room and run through this with you and then you're like, okay, solved.
Fixed.
I'm going to make all of the money forever and always going forward. You kind of have to review these things as much as you would review your analytics, as much as you would do keyword research. You need to be looking at your content, where your readers are going, and make sure that it's optimized so that you are making the most money that you can.
All right, so some of the common problems we are seeing.
If you're going through this with us, hit your in-content settings in your Mediavine dashboard.
They will look like this.
Yeah.
In-content settings are a common thing we see impacting site health, impacting sites with lower than average RPM. We provide all of these settings because we know that different sites have different requirements. We know different site owners have different comfort levels with the amount of ads on their page. So we want to make sure that you guys have all of the options in your hands. So some common things you want to look for are, do you have an ad limit set? And if you do, why? That's a thing that's pretty common. If you have very, very long content and it's very well formatted, there might be room for a lot of ads there. If you're limiting those, really be aware of why you're doing that and what the goal is. When we're on Facebook and we're scrolling for way too long, Facebook never stops serving us ads once we hit like 5 or 6. They keep serving us relevant, targeted ads because we're still engaging with the content.
Was anybody on Instagram this morning? Do you have any idea how many ads you were served while you were scrolling through Instagram this morning? Because I literally have no clue, right? They were just monetizing it for as long as I was willing to interact with the content all the way to the bottom. So if you're writing really great long-form content, your readers engage, they like what you're saying. If you're setting an arbitrary limit because you think that that's like a magic number that you have in your head, if you've got room for 13 and you're setting a limit at 12, right? It's maybe not going to make a huge impact, but it's a lot of little changes. Our script wrapper is super smart. If you only have room for 6, you're only going to have 6, right? But if you have room, like if your content is really long and your reader is still scrolling and they're still engaged, there's literally no reason to just be like, okay, 9 is my number. I'm stopping at 9.
Not only is our script wrapper smart, but Mediavine ads are also the fastest ads you can get. And we also follow the Coalition for Better Ad Standards. So no matter what your settings are at, if you want these maxed out to the very limit, you'll never have more than 30% ads to 70% content overall. And that's a pretty reasonable number for me anyway. No, these are not recommended settings. These are just examples.
This is just an example.
What will work for each site is going to vary. It depends on how your content is formatted. It depends on how it looks on the page. Danny has a question over there.
Danny has a question.
Is there an issue any longer with Google saying that we can only have a certain number of ads on there? I feel like this keeps going around and around. So can you just speak to that?
The only people that count ads are other bloggers or you.
Okay.
Right?
Perfect.
Yeah, it's literally like no one. like your readers are using your site the same way that you would use Facebook or Instagram. They're either scrolling really fast to get to what they think they need, or they're scrolling really slow because they're looking for the piece of information that you put in the middle of the post, right? So it really depends on what kind of content that you're writing and how engaged the person is. But if they're on a phone, they're just scrolling. They're not counting. No one does that.
And is that the same on desktop as well? So if we turn that all the way
Yes.
up, then we're
So,
still
and
fine.
desktop is a place that I would really just like use the numbers to evaluate that, right? Because like some of us really don't have very much desktop traffic. You might even have more tablet traffic than you do actual desktop traffic, depending on what kind of content you're writing. So look at the percentage of desktop you have, and then think about who's hitting your desktop site. Are you pitching a lot of brands? Is that like where marketing people are going? Then you might use all of the data that you have in front of you to evaluate where you want that setting to be, whether higher or lower works for you. It sometimes can depend on your readership. My readers do not care. I can crank it all the way up, and they're like, whatever, tell me how to make biscuits, right? But like, and some readers are more sensitive to that. It can depend on the demographics of your audience. So like know your people, and then use the numbers that you have in front of you to make those decisions.
And also, we're Google certified publishing partners,
Yes.
so our ads and all of our ad setup has to meet all of Google's guidelines and criteria. It fits in that box quite nicely. We are rule followers, and we like it that way. So you are free to adjust your settings however you'd like, and you can be comfortable and confident that it's not going to hurt your website.
It's not going to hurt your.
Right.
It's not going to hurt your
it all the way up.
standings.
We're
Yes.
not at risk
Right.
of like being flagged by Google and like our search
Correct.
phrases or anything.
The other thing to know is that the way that your ads load with Mediavine is literally the Google recommended way to load third-party JavaScript, which is what all of your ads are. It's like the way that they say to do it. So, like, if your reader doesn't scroll all the way down the page, like, so if you scroll down your page and you're like, wow, I count 16 because I just wrote 4,000 words, right? No one else is counting those, but also like if your reader only scrolls and they only see 4, the rest of those are never loading. So they're not there. Those impressions are not happening, which is a better user experience, but it also gives you more money.
Another issue we see pretty frequently with people is these in-content placement directives. We have some options for you depending on how you visually want your site laid out. You can place your in-content ads anywhere on the page, meaning it can be before or after an image, or you can have them placed only after a text paragraph. So it has to have text before it, but it could be immediately before an image. Or you can choose to have those placed only between text paragraphs. That's the most restrictive option. If you're going to choose that option, you want to make sure your content is formatted in a way that supports that, which would be a lot of paragraphs that are really well spaced, a lot of short paragraphs.
So like if we run through what this setting is telling the script wrapper, if we're looking at mobile, we're saying that you can have 30% ads to 70% content. They are allowed to be one paragraph apart. We don't want to limit them, so they're going to monetize all the way to the bottom of the content, but we only want ads after text, which means it'll never be like image ad, right? So if you format your content in a way that supports that, it's not going to hurt your earnings. If you say that you only want after text paragraphs and then you have 7 photos in a row with no text in between, then you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. Right. I just started with the mobile ad frequency at the top. Right? So these in-content placement rules, those are going to affect mobile and desktop, right? But the others are going to be desktop or mobile specific. So, but that's how to sort of read through those settings that you're looking at.
And we would be happy to look through your in-content settings with you to help you make those decisions. Like, I don't like the way this looks, but I still want to make all the money. We'll help you figure out a good balance there and a good set of settings that accomplishes both of those things.
And it's another reason why you want to just be sure that you're looking at your content, like look at where your readers are going on your desktop and on your phone. Because you might choose these settings and then you look and you're like, oh, well that's not what I thought it was going to be. I need to make some changes.
All right, the next thing we're going to cover quickly is having too many opt-outs. There's an opt-out tab. Heather, do you want to elaborate on that a little
This
bit?
is one of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, so the opt-out tab. People like to go to the opt-out tab. It's in your dashboard settings, and it's literally just a list of things that you probably hate, right? So, like, there are definitely some hot button issues in there, some things that you may never want to see on your site. It's really important to know that, number one, those settings only apply to Google, but that's not the most important part, because number two, I think our brains always go to like the worst case scenario. So like a good example would be, there's one for body modification, which in my brain sounds terrible. It sounds like I'd be encouraging women to like maim themselves and like self-hate a little bit, and I just really don't like that at all. But if I have a reader that's been researching bachelorette parties and spa services, and they offer seaweed wraps at a place down the street, and they bought ads through Google's ad exchange, I just said that I don't want those people in my auction, right? So like programmatic advertising should always be relative to your reader. Another one that it's like a push button issue for me is like firearms or like hunting. I'm like, I write about baking. I don't need that. But if somebody has been shopping at Dick's Sporting Goods, and Dick's Sporting Goods sells guns, and they have a revolving ad with like a soccer ball and a shotgun, right? Oh, well, bad example. However,
Cabela's.
right. There are a whole bunch of sporting goods stores that do though, right? So I'd be saying like, even though that's relevant to my reader, like they're never gonna serve me that ad because it's not relevant to me. But if I have a reader that's been shopping at a place that's selling those services, it's maybe not worst case scenario. It's maybe, and I'm taking all of those opportunities out of the auction. They can still bid through other partners. So now they can just reach your reader for less, right? Because it's not inappropriate, it's not offensive to all people, right? So we can't just take it out of the auction altogether. There's nothing that's not PG, which is like our standard.
Yes.
So they're literally just going around Google and probably still reaching your reader who has that cookie in their browser, and they're just paying you less money for it.
The whole goal of programmatic advertising is to serve your readers something they're most likely to buy, or they would like to buy, or would be useful for them. So if it's not going to be useful to them, chances are they're not going to see it. Like when I go to your sites, I see like Tide and Target and other places where I buy a lot of things because they want to prompt me to buy more things. Or I see stuff for other related stores to the things I've already bought. And that's going to be true for your readers too. Because when we go to our own sites, we've been to our own sites a whole lot. So the exchanges have largely used up the premium campaigns on us because I'm on my site all the time. That's not really the case for your readers. So they're going to be seeing those premium campaigns and not things that aren't relevant to them.
Another good example, which is one that I see pretty often, is for well, you can't see it because it's like super tiny, but
that is very tiny.
There are opt-outs for things like baked goods or meat, or so like if you have a site that offers that like your focus is dietary restrictions on some level, like if you write about vegan and you don't want meat serving on your site, if I'm your reader and my sister-in-law is coming to my house and I'm just trying to use your website to figure out how to make her a nice solid vegan dish, like I might still care about bacon, and so like it just it's up to the advertisers and the programmatic advertising to know what is going to be relevant to me. They're pretty good at it. So it's just important to kind of have those things in the back of your head. If you're going to opt out of things, just be super deliberate about it. Know that it's not going to be 100%, and think about how it's hurting your pocketbook and if it's doing any good.
All right.
Yes.
Gambling, alcohol, politics, and pharmaceuticals are probably the 4 opt-outs you have to be most careful about, because we pass that information on to other exchanges and not just Google even. And they're also the highest spending of the 4.
Okay. Because it fits into the sensitive catery. That wasn't even in my brain. Yeah. So if you opt out of this here, they pass that data on. So like if you say, pharmaceuticals, no pharmaceuticals, then that puts you into a sensitive category where they tell the other partners that we also don't want them to serve you pharmaceuticals. So that can really make an impact on your earnings.
I don't want to talk in this. Okay, so this would be a question that I had versus can you opt out of one particular ad? So in other words, I I don't have an issue with pharmaceuticals, I guess. But I'm a food blogger, and one of the pharmaceuticals showed a toilet for IBS. I don't think
Right.
that looks good on a
Right.
picture next to food. Do you know what I'm saying? So is there a
I
way
do
to
understand what you're saying.
opt out of that
So for
particular
that, you can be like, report this ad,
Okay.
and we can take care of it. Some of them we can take care of it on a site-to-site basis. It kind of depends on the ad, how we handle it, right? There are some things that we're like, yes, we should block this in all the places, get it out, right? It's maybe just like a weird creative that slipped through. It depends on the ad and who's serving it, but if you just report this ad, and then let us know what the deal is. But also know that because you were served that ad, it's probably not premium. It's probably not premium spend, right? So like my lease was up on my car, and I was getting served a Mazda ad for like in perpetuity forever. But it was just because like I'm on my site all the time, every day, and it was like they were like, oh, we don't want to spend a lot of money on this lady because she's been here 42 times already. Like, we'll just tell her about Mazda again. So when you see ads that you feel like are not your first visit to a site, advertisers are like, spend all the money, right? And then if you hit the second page, they're like, she's still here, spend more money. By the time you've been working on your site all day, they're like, would you like a toilet ad?
Yeah.
Right? So you're seeing an ad. Your readers are probably not seeing that ad unless it was relevant to them. You're getting the end of the advertiser spending, and they're always going to be getting the beginning.
Yes. So the next thing,
Right. But if it's an ad that you hate, totally report it and just tell us why, and we will eliminate it for you to the best of our ability. Yeah.
all right. So cookie opt-outs or lead capture forms. We will answer more questions at the end. I'm just watching the time, and we're trying to get through this. So, cookie opt-ins. Watch on your site. If they're covering your content, if they're covering your ads, what are they doing for you? What are the goals associated with those? Are your email lead captures super obnoxious and turning people away? If they are they converting really, really well? Because there's a cost and a benefit to everything. So you want to make sure, first of all, they're not covering any ads, because that's ad policy violations. That can be very bad news. You want to make sure they're not covering any kind of usability items on your site. Like, make it easy for people to navigate your site. Don't put a bunch of obstacles between your readers and your content. And if you are, make sure you're choosing them very well. They're fast, they're not impacting your site speed, not covering up your ads.
A good example would be like Milo Tree. A lot of people have Milo Tree, and it'll slide across and cover your content, and your readers see it and they think this is an ad. They don't like differentiate between all of the different things. Or like if you have a cookie opt-in that is at the bottom and it's covering your adhesion unit, that is a super viewable unit. You don't want to cover that up. Also, that's a policy violation. But beyond that, like, you're hurting yourself. If you're covering your share buttons at the top, your readers can't share. You can't get more traffic. So just like be really deliberate and look at what things are covered and how they're affecting user experience.
Yes. All right, the next thing is, do you have any content below your recipe card or your how-to card? Or is the purpose that someone is coming to your site, is that at the top of your page or is it at the bottom? Because heat maps and research and data and just user experience shows people do not scroll past what they're coming to the site for. So if you have a how-to card halfway down your post, people are leaving after they see the how-to card.
I'll add to that, if you put the information that they showed up for in the middle of the post, they're going to stop in the middle of the post, right? So if you give them all the goods after 2 screen views, they're like, thanks, lady, I'll see you later. You know, you want to keep them engaged all the way to the bottom.
So it's not benefiting you because they're not seeing the recommended posts, for instance, which a lot of
Yes.
people like to put underneath a recipe or how-to card. So you're probably not getting clicks to those posts anyways. And you're kind of wasting your time a little bit because you're adding this content there and it's really only for you if no one is scrolling past it. You can test this on your own site by running a heat map on a few pages for a day or two just to see how far people are actually scrolling and how that's impacting you. And that's having to do a little bit with your in-content health scores too. Because if you have a bunch of content under your how-to or your recipe card, or like if it's a video that is the thing they're coming there for, if you have that and those ads are not loading, like they're not helping you at all. So that's something to be aware of when you're crafting your post, as well as post formatting concerns. So these ones are pretty basic. If you guys have been with Mediavine for a while, you have probably heard us talking about this. You've probably read posts on the blog about this. You've probably heard it on Facebook Lives, but we still see quite a few people who are writing super long paragraphs that take up a whole screen on mobile. We are still seeing people that have small fonts that are hard to read and aren't helping you monetize well.
If you need to like expand the screen on your phone to read and like focus, your font is too small. If you need to hold the phone away from your face or too close to see it, your font is too small. Yes, Danny. The flip side of that is it can go the other way. Like there is such a thing as font that's too big. So just like have that in your mind.
So talking about the create with the extra ads in there,
Yeah,
and
we
then
talked
the
about it yesterday.
list. Yeah, so I've been seeing some people where they're using lists above the recipe card, and then they're getting a lot lower impressions and getting like user complaints that there's no recipe because they feel like they've hit like the related posts at the end of the post.
So that's like, I don't know which slide it's on, but it's a thing that we put in here. The same thing happens with like, if you put an
Affiliates.
Amazon affiliate widget
Yeah.
like in the middle of your post, in my brain that signifies that I've hit the end. I'm like, okay, well I'm at the end, goodbye, right?
So with your thoughts on that, do you recommend that we put the lists for, you know, other posts underneath the recipe card?
Using a list and a recipe card in the post is tricky because of schema, and you have to know to turn the schema off in the list so that Google understands that you're communicating that this is a recipe.
Or a how-to.
Right, or a how-to. Or like whatever you're using it for. So I would say, like the way that I do related posts is to just do, because you know part of Grow is that we'll have a related post option. Like lists are maybe not the greatest way to do that.
If you do use lists, I would recommend making sure the schema is off and then trying a different format. Like the circle format is pretty good for that. Sometimes when I've been experimenting a little bit with that, I will use just one list item with the schema off to recommend like a roundup post of mine. And if you choose the right format, it doesn't look like a recipe card, so people won't be as confused.
Right.
And
And the
I
other
tend to
thing-
sandwich those inside of content.
Right.
Yeah, we're not doing it yet. I've just been seeing it happening
Yeah.
more and people recommending to do it as like, here's like an easier way to get
The thing that I would look
things to
at
recommend.
is, number one, is it a post that's getting enough traffic that you'd be able to measure it, but watch your recipe card or your how-to card CPMs and the viewability. Did it go down? Is nobody hitting there? Like, do you feel like your impressions are down there? Like, it's something that you would be able to measure and be like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Because arguably, I think our recipe card ads are more valuable than anything that would be served.
Yeah,
on the
they're going to
list.
have really high CPMs and they're going to have really great viewability. So, excellent question.
Right. The next thing we want to touch on is if you're making it easy to skip past your content and your ads for your readers. So this is something that is related to our intelligent design choices. Are you offering a service to someone because you think it'll be helpful, or are you encouraging them to use it? We want to be really intentional about that. Like if you love Jump to Recipe, for instance, and your readers love it, like you can provide that service, but you probably don't have to provide it in like a blinky light at the very top of your post in
Don't
big
make it
bold
orange.
colors, encouraging them to click that because they're skipping over everything. They're skipping over your content you spent so much time creating. They're skipping over your images that you take so much care and time to devote to that. They're skipping over your ads, which are not loading if someone's skipping over them, because advertisers, they want their ads to be seen and not skipped over. So that's something that's a really easy compromise. If you make it smaller and out of the way, it can still be there for the people that are like, just give me the recipe, or just give me the whatever, the print, just give me that. You can offer that to that small minority. If you use it on your own site, which I hear a lot as the reasoning behind utilizing Jump to Recipe, because They like it because they want just their recipes and they know what's in the post because they wrote it. Like, make it smaller.
But also, are you writing your site for you, or are you writing it for your readers?
Yes, exactly. Now, there has been some argument that Jump to Recipe is better for SEO, and I would like to refute that. There's no evidence at all anywhere except for originating from these specific people that Jump to Recipe is good for SEO. There's some vague assumptions that it's better for user experience, and user experience is something you want to keep in the front of your mind for SEO, but in my opinion, and many people's opinions, it's not a good user experience.
Google is not
to
calling
jump
your
past
post and getting
everything.
super excited that you just gave everyone permission not to read anything.
No.
Right, so that's not a thing. What was the question?
Yeah, you had mentioned a minute ago, like using like a heat map on a page or your site to see like where people are clicking. I was just wondering, like, what's the best way to do that?
There's a free one that I like called Hotjar, Hotjar. You can pay for an upgraded version, but it'll give you like a certain number of like sessions or page views or whatever for free. And you can kind of move it around depending on what you're looking to gauge. So I use it to see, like I used it to figure out, like email opt-ins are really heavy and they slow your site down. And I needed to figure out which one was actually converting well for me, like where were people actually clicking. So I installed a heat map on a couple of my top posts and pages, and I figured out which ones to get rid of. The same thing with your sidebar. If you're trying to optimize there, you can kind of use a heat map. Like, it can be hard to part with things. It's really hard to be like unemotional. You're like, I put this here, I love it. I don't know, I don't want to get rid of it. But if it's not adding value and it's hurting your money, use the data that you have in front of you to figure it out. So you can install the heat map. It'll literally like give you percentages, and it'll show you like red and blue. Blue would be like no one comes down here. So a good example would be like the content that's below your payoff at the end. It's always blue, like no one goes there.
All right, we got to get into some video.
There's no one after
here.
us. She said we could spill if we need to.
Yay, we will spill a little. It's time already, but we're going to talk about video. All right.
Oh, this is me. If you're producing your own video or you're outsourcing it, it's awesome. It's excellent for long-term growth. Don't skip out on video just because you don't have the capital or you think the video is going to be super expensive or it feels like scary or prohibitive. Like, don't do that. This is a thing that I loved at the end of Carly's session yesterday. She was like, just do it. And then she gave us all the pictures of her like balancing food on her comforter while she figured out how to do video. And there were other people coming up after the session and they were like, yes, I put my iPhone on the edge of my table and I film hands and pans underneath it. Because the point is, like, your readers find it useful, the CPMs are high, you're gonna make money, just figure it out and just do it.
There are some really easy tools that you can use to put together slideshow videos that are super helpful for your readers. They include more tips and tricks, they're adding value to the post, and they're utilizing what you have already. So video is a very small investment to get into initially. If you're not utilizing that, please let us know. We are happy to walk you through it. It is so simple. In 30 minutes, you can have a professional looking video and be capitalizing on those often double-digit CPMs. So that's a good, easy, fast way to
One of the things
increase
that
your
we talked
revenue.
about this morning was a question that we get pretty often is, are the slideshow videos useful? Because people that are outsourcing videos were like, okay, I'm paying all this money for the outsourced videos, and like, I can, turn these slideshow videos out. Are they still as useful for my readers? And that's really up to you. So if you take the same kinds of tips and tricks that you would use somebody to engage in your email that you sent out, right? We sat in the email session yesterday and they were giving great examples, like 5 secrets to the softest cookies, right? So if you've got a cookie recipe or you've got a travel post, it's like the best restaurants to eat at in Chicago, you can totally make a slideshow video. And the Mediavine player also has a call to action at the top of it, so you can actually, if you're giving them something that's going to encourage them to click, you can potentially get a second page view and more impressions out of it.
Use video as kind of on your website use it as kind of like an internal commercial. Like you want to push people to other content. You want to make them engaged. You want to entice them to click over as well as engage with the videos. So you can do that super easily. To make the most of video CPMs and the most of our up next, you want to make those short and 30 to 45 seconds ideally. You can save your longer format videos for YouTube or Facebook or any of the other different applications there. But for maximum revenue, you want short videos that are very engaging. So your readers have a chance to see more than one of them because a pre-roll ad will run before each video out there.
And then you get a mid-roll in between.
How to make money with video. The first step is just to have a video. Like, that's the easy part. Next, you have to go to your dashboard, into the video section. You want to make sure you fill out the permalink and the keywords and all of the other fields in the video. And then embed the video in the post you put
Please
as the
embed the
permalink.
video. Please, please, pretty please.
We're
embed the
seeing
video.
pretty frequently that people are getting through the upload process and then not actually embedding them in their post. So people are seeing them in that up next playlist,
Like in the playlist carousel.
but
like
not
they're
in
getting
this post
impressions.
specific areas. So you're not getting the SEO benefit of having an embedded video, and you're not getting as many views as you could on that. So make sure you don't skip the embedding part. And then check your settings. Make sure you do not have a home page in the URL. Advertisers are using this link and the keywords and the description to make decisions on whether they want to spend on your videos or not. So make sure those are keyword rich and that you're filling them out correctly. And then you have to get through your video settings. These are global video settings. They're in the settings section of your dashboard. There's autoplay first mobile, autoplay first desktop, and optimized video placement.
Question,
Yes.
is it better to insert the video in the post, in the recipe card, both?
All of the above. Like, it's very, very just dependent on what your goals are. Google likes them in the post. They also like them in the recipe card. If you use Create, you can do it in both and then hide it in the recipe card so it's only actually showing once. And that would give the schema output for the post video and also the recipe video, which is what a lot of people do. But you really only need it in one place, and our optimize placement option, if you embed it in the card, will automatically take it and move it up higher in your content under the first in content ad on desktop or the second on mobile, which is where you'll make the most money and it won't impact your site speed.
I would like to expand on that a little bit. There's an option that you can use when you grab your embed code to make or not make a video stay where you embed it. A lot of people use it and they don't realize that when you use that setting, you're overriding the site-wide setting. So if you chose for us to optimize the placement of your video and we know where to put it, so you're gonna get the best viewability and the most ad impressions while your reader is engaged with your content, and then you embed it further down the post and you choose that little, it's like a checkbox that says sticky, then it's not gonna start playing until it's where you embedded it.
That's the featured video section, and that's what's going to take your whatever you select for your featured video and insert it automatically into any posts that don't have a manual embed. So that's an important one to monetize. Any of those blog posts where you haven't had a video created for it yet, you haven't made a video, it lets you capitalize on those high CPMs without having an actual post-specific video.
Hold on, where's the microphone? I can't.
So
I can't
Danny had
hear all of
asked
the
whether anyone should be using YouTube embeds, because some people are doing them everywhere, some people are not doing them, and it's really up to you. Some people are using YouTube in their recipe card if they're not running Create, so that they're not having duplicate Mediavine embeds. Some people just want to have a version of that long form video in addition to the autoplay shorter version. All of those options are fine as long as your video is below the fold and not impacting your site speed negatively. You can really decide what's best for your audience and what your goals are with the video in question.
As far as like the SEO benefits for that, can you kind of talk to that? I know that there's been some confusion of like whether that's happening in the Mediavine video player.
As long as the video is outputting the details that Google is asking for, it's totally fine. Like you're not getting like extra special juju from one video player versus another, as long as you're giving, so like if you're looking at your details with the Google structured data tool, if you're checking all the boxes and you're not getting any warnings or errors, then you're giving Google all the details that they ask for, regardless of what tool you're using to embed it. It's just if you use the Mediavine player, you're going to be able to make more money. So
There's no additional SEO benefit to a YouTube embed versus a Mediavine embed. They both export schema. Any other questions?
So when we want to choose like which is the video for the featured video, is it best to look at the CPM or the fill rate or both or something else?
All
This
of the
was
above.
one of those things that we just recently did a lunch and learn, and Nicole said it in the session, and like 15 light bulbs went off in the room, and it was really fun. So use the data in your dashboard to decide, and also change it up, right? So if you just have the same featured video like forever and always in perpetuity, like advertisers decide how they're spending based on a lot of your keywords and just the content that they're monetizing in front of, right? So like if it's the same thing forever and always, give them something new and see what happens. Or like watch those CPMs in your dashboard and change
Watch
it up.
seasonal trends.
Yeah.
If it's coming up on Easter and you have an Easter video content, it's likely advertisers might be trying to target Easter content. So try to switch it up and keep it relevant to the season. Keep in mind what URL you are sending them to. Keep all those things in mind and just watch things. If your featured video CPM starts slipping, try switching it. You could try creating a new one with a new set of keywords and URLs. Okay, we have one question.
Hi, I'm Tamara Rubin, Let's Save Mama. I thank you for all your help over the last, I don't know, however long it's been. And it's nice. I think I might have met you both in Portland.
Yes.
But it's nice to see you again and connect
Same.
faces. So I have a question that is kind of both from you and Carissa, but she doesn't have this question, but she should. So we were just talking. We were looking at our opt-outs, and I had opted out of pesticides and pest control. Pest and weed control, because we're both non-toxic bloggers, and she's like, well, she's seen organic weed control stuff on hers as ads, and I'm just wondering, but I don't want anything from Monsanto on mine, So, is there any possibility in the future that there might be a compartmentalization of genres of ads, where, because this has been a problem across all the things we do, where like a non-toxic natural set of advertisers would be better suited to our blogs as well as do better.
I would say that still speaks to the nature of programmatic advertising, right? Because it's sort of like they should be giving your readers what's relevant to them. It's maybe not necessarily what's relevant to you.
And
so
the category,
go ahead.
Sorry, the categorization. My mic keeps going in and out. Sorry. It's an ad industry thing. It's not something we decide. So if the ad industry starts segmenting that stuff, then it's something we could consider giving to you guys as options, but it's not like arbitrary categories made up by us. So we can't really tell all of the ad industry to segment organic versus not organic. It's the same thing as like meat and dairy or vegan. A lot of vegan bloggers want to be able to exclude anything non-vegan, and that's just not an option that we're offered right now. So.
And it's probably not how your readers are using your site, because you're like all the way into the non-toxic, right? And some people are just learning and they're just dipping their toes in, and they maybe those products are relevant to them. Maybe they were researching them earlier today. Maybe they came to your site to learn about, why or why not, right? They're only going to get it if it's relevant to them, if they have the cookie in their browser. Like there has to be some reason. It's not just arbitrary.
Like maybe they're just learning about why non-organic pesticides are the devil. Like,
they're doing weed control, and I have an article about how to kill your weeds
Most readers are pretty aware that site owners are not specifically choosing their advertisements. It wasn't so much that a few years ago, but programmatic advertising is largely the advertising now, so they're pretty aware. And I've seen people put like a small disclaimer in their sidebar too, like these advertisements are targeted to you based on your browsing habits and are not endorsed by me.
Question?
So it's okay if you've got, or there's not much difference between YouTube and Mediavine embedded ads. What about, I've taken some Facebook Lives that I've done and then embedded them on my blog. Is that helpful or no?
I would say your readers are probably not watching them on, like, they use your website really, really differently than they engage with your Facebook page. Like, it's a totally different medium. People don't really come to your website and like when you go to YouTube, you're on YouTube to watch videos, and it'll cycle through the next video and it'll go to the next thing, right? So like they typically don't land on a blog post and watch long form content. They land on a blog post for a different reason. So I don't know if that's necessarily like, it's not hurting you, but is it embedded in is it like, did you upload it to your Mediavine player and then embed it that way?
No, it's a blog post about bottle feeding goat kids. And so there's a whole article about it, but I created the Facebook Live to show people, like, no, they're not just going to grab it and start sucking. Like, you have to, like, really try. And so, because I was getting so many comments about that. So that's why, so, like, the video is really helpful, and it's like 5 or 10 minutes. But
that's probably really useful for your readers who are really investigating that.
Yes.
But you might want to consider creating a Mediavine video that you can embed that's shorter and just covers like the basics, like the 5 things you need to know about bottle feeding goats, and make it short. And that one would autoplay. So for the people that are just coming there to skim and read, they would be able to see that. And the people that are there to really dig in and learn would have access to your content from the Facebook Live.
okay, so it sounds like the advantage is that the Mediavine one would autoplay.
Yes. And
Got it.
Mediavine doesn't monetize non-Mediavine embeds.
Right.
So if you're running YouTube embeds, you're not making Mediavine level CPMs on that. YouTube CPMs are not anywhere close to what the Mediavine player can monetize
You
at.
can also heat map it and see if people are actually clicking through and if they're actually using it there, or like if they are using it there, then it's useful, and leave it. And if they're not using it the way that you thought that they might or the way that you intended, figure out another way to direct them to your Facebook page, right? So like, hi, we have more discussion on this topic over here, or I have a video over here. You know, figure out how to use it to your advantage and keep them engaged with your content in some other way. Yes.
That actually just reminded me. I have a friend who she wanted to use the Mediavine, take advantage of all the video ads, but she didn't have a chance. She didn't have a chance to like make a bunch of hands and pans videos. But she was doing Insta stories where she was like walking through the recipes, and so she downloaded some of those Insta stories and she uploaded those in the recipes as her video until she had a chance to swap them out for hands and pans, at least so that she could take advantage of the video.
That's fantastic.
That's a
I
great
love that.
idea.
Video stuff. So that's like you can be a little creative on it. It doesn't have to be like time intensive stuff. If you're already doing something on social, you can use some of that.
Sometimes when I'm creating a post, I will take like a 5-second video clip of just whatever I'm making to insert into the slideshow video, so there is still a video element there. I've seen people use really creative stock footage from Animoto or whatever tool they're using just to add some more production quality to it. I love that option for the downloading of social.
That's a great idea.
It's wonderful.
Great idea.
All right.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? Yes.
Just wanted to ask about the video. Do you find people are listening? Is it worth putting subtitles? I know, like, for a quick fix with Insta stories, like adding subtitles might take some time.
I personally find subtitles really useful, but it depends on the format. Like, I don't know if I've ever noticed them on an actual website. I totally notice them on social media. So I don't know.
Most of the time, the video on your site is going to be running in the background, and if someone is wanting to really engage with it, they're going to seek it out and they're going to unmute it on purpose. And if they don't want to unmute it on purpose, they're likely not going to be engaging with it at that level. But I don't think subtitles could hurt
It depends
at
on
all.
the kind of video, though, because a lot of videos just have music, and if you are, quickly walking people through something, like, you've got travel content, so you might be covering something different, just quick tips and tricks, that might be something that works really well for you. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Going back to the jump to recipe buttons, you guys obviously don't like them, and I get that. But have you seen the Chrome extension that grabs the recipe card? Have you seen the Chrome extension that grabs the recipe card and actually puts it at the top? Like, it skips over all the content, it overlays the website.
No, but why would you do that, though?
The Chrome extension?
Yeah.
It's for people who don't want to have to scroll through the
Right.
post content.
So I
right?
would say that's a great option for that person.
So it's not like a large enough group.
Yeah,
It's not anything I would put at the top of my blog post with a link to
No.
download it. It's kind of like ad blockers. They exist. Some people use them. It's a very small percentage. So if they're going to seek that out and use that, they can still have my content. I don't care. There's way more people that are not using those that are happy to engage with our content in a way that makes it sustainable and easier to create more of it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're way over. So the support desk, the help desks will be open upstairs. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to come up, grab
Wanna sit
any
with
of
us?
us at any point. We are
Let
happy.
us push all the buttons.
Yes. Ask all the questions. You can always email us, publishers@mediavine.com. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you.